I'm Farmer Dave, and here at Farmer Dave's we grow an awful lot of fruits and vegetables. And one thing we've learned is that we can significantly expand our season by starting a lot of our crops in the greenhouses pretty much in the winter. That gives us that much more time of growth. Also, by starting a lot of our crops as transplants in the greenhouse, it gives us a jump against the weeds, and we're able to combat those weeds a lot easier starting with a larger plant in the field rather than a plant by seed. We still grow some crops directly seeded in the fields, but every year we're growing more and more of our crops by starting them in the greenhouse. And over the years we've had this evolution. As we're growing more and more crops in the field, in the greenhouses, or starting them in the greenhouses, we're trying to figure out how to do all this seeding more quickly and enter machines. It used to be that we would just simply take seeds by our fingers and put them in these seeding trays one at a time. And then we evolved to little vibrating spoons, basically, so the seeds would vibrate off of them slowly, and that would speed us up a little bit. Then we came out with a vacuum plate. So you would have this plate that would fit over this seed tray, and there would be a vacuum behind it, would roll out the seeds on that plate, and then flip it over on top, shut off the vacuum, and all the seeds would fall down all at once. In this case, this is a 200 tray. There's 200 cells here, so you can imagine how long it takes to do this by hand. Well, now, this year we acquired a used vacuum seeder. Actually, it's more of it's called a needle seeder, but it works off of pneumatic pressure. So this is one step ahead. This would be a very expensive equipment new, but it's about 30 years old and it still works just fine. So the way it works is you put your seeding tray already with the soilless mix in it, as you see here, and we can do a few different size trays. This is a 200 tray. We can do one that's 588 cells. We can also do one that's only 72, depending on the size transplant that we want to go out in the field. So you put your seed tray here, and there's a sensor here to know when that tray has arrived, because this is a conveyor that will automatically forward itself. Once the tray gets to this point, we have this arm here, which has these needles on the end of it. And working off of the pneumatic pressure of the compressor, it will cause a suction, and each needle will grab a seed. Now, if it's a certain type of seed where we actually want to put several per cell, like right now we're actually seeding chives, we want to put a few seeds in each cell. In that case, we can use a larger needle with a bigger orifice at the tip, and we can adjust the vacuum of that needle to suck up even more seeds to it. Now, the needle tip is small enough that the seed will not get sucked through it, it will just get sucked up to it. So here you can see this is a smaller needle than the one that is on the machine presently. You can see if you can zoom in on that, that's a much larger orifice on this one that we're using now, because we're trying to hold about 5 or 7 seeds at a time. If we were using a different size seed or trying to seed only one at a time, we would use a needle like this with a very small orifice in it. And we have about 8 or 10 different needles to put on this machine. Now we have a lot of different needles that can go on this machine, about 8 or 10 different ones depending on the seed that we're using, how many seeds we want to seed into the tray. So it's a highly variable machine depending on how many seeds we want to put in each cell, the size tray, and the size seed. Once the tray forwards to this point, the seeds will come up, get sucked up to the needles, and then the pressure will get turned off for a second, and the seeds will drop. And when they drop down, they'll drop into the cell. Then it will automatically increase, in this case, or advance about 1 inch to the next row of seeds. Also back here is what we call a dibbler. This will make small depressions in the soil for a spot where the seeds can fall. After the tray advances to this point, we have this little hopper which will sprinkle anything that we put into the hopper onto the top of the tray, because you want to cover most of those seeds with a little bit of soilless material. You could use peat moss or something else. In this case, we're actually using vermiculite, which you see here. So we get this from a company locally in Lawrence. It's locally manufactured in Lawrence at Whittemore Company. And this is actually, it's a stone that they bring up to a very high temperature. I forget the temperature, something like 800 or 1,000 degrees. And basically that stone pops. So it's kind of like popcorn. And this is a very nice material to put on top of those seeds to help hold moisture, but not too much moisture. So this whole machine runs off of a little bit of electricity and the compressed air off of the compressor next door. So now I'm going to give it a trial run. We'll see how it works, but because of the noise, I won't be talking so much during it.
Nice release.